Hello again. Right, time for our English lesson. It's the first time we're trying to do this online, so these may evolve over time. They're going to be a little bit stop and start because of the way our English lessons work in the 3 big chunks, and I'm going to try and teach you in that way for the lessons as well. Now, our new text that we're going to be writing about, or our writing is going to be based on, is this fantastic book. I don't know if you can see. It's called A Monster Calls, and it's by Patrick Ness. Okay, you said you wanted a bit of horror, and we've got a little bit of horror here. So we're going to go straight into the first chunk and see how it goes. You can see that to save time, I've done all the thinking for you, but I am going to get you to do a little bit more. So our first plot point, which is what our paragraph today is going to be about, is Conor wakes from a nightmare. So hopefully you can see why I asked you to look a little bit into dreams and nightmares and sleep yesterday. It ties in with this. Okay, so our lens, our focus for this first sentence, this first chunk, is punctuation. And we're going to be writing list-like phrases. Now, we all know that we use a comma to separate items in a list, but if they are longer and chunkier, we can use semicolons. Okay, it's the first time we've come across it. I don't know if you've used them in previous years, but we will get there and you will see my model. I will teach you how to do it. Right, okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was come up with some amazing vocabulary about nightmare. So I had a really good look at that picture, and I have to say that was quite creepy, and it certainly made me think about the sights and the sounds and the bodily reactions that a bit of horror, a bit of a nightmare gives to you. And I thought of trickling blood. I thought of shadowy figures, you know, when you can't quite see what's going on and your imagination is worse than anything that could be written. Howling wind, that pathetic fallacy that we talk about and we use in our writing. The howling wind just makes that little bit more creepy. And I also thought about what it does. Have you ever woken up and your heart's going boom, 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 boom? I know I have. Pounding heart. You could have trembling hands. There's all sorts of things you could have. I'm going to get you to try and think of a couple of your own, and that will be the same for each chunk and each lesson. Although I'm going to give you vocabulary, my challenge to you is always to find 2 or 3 or 4 more that you could use in your writing. You may find better ones than me, or you can choose to use the ones that I give you. Okay? I wanted some alliteration in this. It's my opening sentence. I want it to start with a bang. Okay? So a little bit of alliteration. We're really throwing everything at this one. So horrifying and horrendous. So these are adjectives. These are adjectival alliteration. Okay, so I've got horrifying, horrendous. I've got spine-chilling and spooky. So again, you need to try and think of just, a few more, 2, 3, 4 more of your own. Now, I'm going to put those into a sentence, and then I'll tell you what you need to do next. Okay, so let's make it a good one. This is our first sentence. I'm going to slightly move my camera down a little bit so you can see what I'm writing. Okay, I'm going to start it very to the point. Conor had a nightmare. Now I could stop my sentence there. I think that's got quite a good impact by itself, but I want to add more detail into that without it becoming flowing and flowery. We want it to be harsh, quite brutal, this. So if I want to expand on that, if I want to explain and add more detail, I'm going to use a colon to introduce that. Okay, so we've got that higher level punctuation straight away. Conor had a nightmare. Right, now I'm going to use some of these. howling wind. Let's set the scene. So this is really a list, but because they're not single words, because they're short phrases, I'm going to use a semicolon each time to separate the items, okay? So, howling wind, semicolon. I want this, something about my trickling blood. Oh, how about this? Because I'm thinking alliteration as well. Oh dear, I can't spell it. You see, we all make these mistakes. Let's cross that out. I haven't gone off the end, no. Torturous. Oh, that's a nice word. Torturous. You've lost the S off the end. Let's see if I can get the S on for you. There we go. A torturous trickle of blood. Conor had a nightmare. Howling wind. A torturous trickle of blood. I want more. I want to really pile this on, okay? How's he feeling? Sudden, short breaths. Now I've got a list within my list here because I've got sudden, comma, because we're separating. Short breaths. Are we going to finish it there? No. I want the thing that's really going to make your heart pump. Now, we wouldn't normally use punctuation when we're using an and. But I want to very clearly separate these items out. So I am going to put another semicolon in there and a sinister. I love that word. I think that's quite creepy. Very sinister. Sinister, shadowy. Figure. We're going to let our reader's imagination fill in the blanks. So let's have a think. This is a new book. We're opening the book for the first time. First sentence, Conor had a nightmare. Howling wind, a torturous trickle of blood, sudden short breaths, and a sinister, shadowy figure. I don't know about you, but I'm hooked already. Okay, it's your turn to do some work. I've done quite a bit there. So as I said, for each of the bits, see if you can find some even better vocabulary that you are going to use. And then I want you to build a sentence. You've got my model to base it on to make sure it all pulls together. I want you to introduce your list of detail with a colon. I want you to separate each phrase within it with semicolons. And I want you to include 4 phrases the same as me, okay? So I've got the howling wind, the torturous trickle of blood, sudden short breaths, and a sinister shadowy figure. And I want at least 2 pieces of alliteration squeezed in as well. Okay, so pause the video, move over into your homework books to actually do your work, or you can type it, I don't mind, same as before. If you leave the video on the screen, you can see the model sentence all the time, okay? And then when you're ready, you can come back to me. As always, if you do it really quickly, you can write another sentence. You can really deepen that moment. You can't move on. You can't make up your own story. You can't move it along. But you can always write another sentence. But if you do, make sure you choose one of the lenses. Maybe the feeling lens would be a good one for another sentence. Okay? I'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay, you're back. So you must be ready for chunk 2. And chunk 2, as you can see, we're looking at short sentences. We talk a lot about short sentences, using them to create tension, for effect on the reader, and that's what we're focusing on now. So our lens is our sentence structures. Okay, that's the real focus of this. Now, I want to explore those fear-based verbs that you have when you wake up from a nightmare. So we've talked about a pounding heart, we've talked about maybe shaking hands or trembling hands. But I thought back to when I've woken up from nightmares, and I've just come up with some fear-based verbs that we might be able to use in a sentence. Okay, so gasping. Yeah, good one on there that I didn't put. Sweating. Have you ever woken up and you're absolutely sweating, or you're shivering because you're so scared? Trembling, shaking, gripping, holding onto those sheets as if someone's going to steal them away from you or they're protecting you. Tensing. You might even be rocking. Okay, we're going for it big time in our writing. So again, if there's more that you can add to it, go for it. But this is a nice short chunk, and we're going for a very short sentence, so not a huge amount to write, but we're also going to include a bit of repetition. Okay, really, really good for effect. And I'm going to start simple. He woke. Okay, he woke. I can't get any shorter than that. We need a subject and we need a verb to make a main clause or a sentence. Okay, so that is about as short as it can get. But I am going to write a little bit more than that. That would be a little bit of a cop-out, I think. So I'm going to use this repetition, and I'm going to say he woke, and I'm going to use gasping. Okay, so he woke, gasping, and I'm really going for it. I'm going to repeat the he woke again. I want to really stress to the reader, you know, how terrified this boy, this Conor is. He woke gasping, he woke. I'm just going to go for the second one, trembling. Really simple sentences to write. It's all about choosing the vocabulary, but the impact that has on the reader is really quite impressive. Okay, so your turn again. We've got the word bank, but again, if you can, improve on it. And I want you to incorporate your own really powerful verbs into this structure. Okay, so I want the power of three. We've got three. If you think the power of three is always really, really good. And the repetition. Okay, so you can pause me again. Leave it on your screen if you can, so you've got the model there, and write your own sentence or a few short sentences. Okay. If you want to deepen the moment, feel free. I would suggest this time, if you want to do it, you look at it from an action lens. What was actually happening? Okay, right, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, welcome back. Final chunk for the day. I hope you've written me some amazing sentences. I'm sure you have. You do for me every day. Final chunk is fronted adverbials and rhetorical questions. Okay, things we use all the time. But we've gone from a very short sentence. We now want a bit of a longer sentence so we can have some variety. So my first thought was, how could we open a sentence to describe how Conor wakes up? Okay, so he's gone through the gasping, the trembling, the heart pounding, the fear, and now he's kind of realising that, oh yes, I am in my own bed, that when you come to and you realise that it wasn't real, it was just your mind, your imagination running wild while you were asleep. So things I came up with were groggily, or in a daze. I sometimes feel like that for half the day, but particularly when I first wake up, barely conscious, maybe not with it. There's lots of ways you feel when you're kind of half between sleep and being awake. Okay, so I'm thinking of starting a sentence with something like that, so getting that fronted adverbial bang straight in there. Okay, so rhetorical question. He's had this hideous nightmare. We don't know what about, but it sounds like it's got shadowy figures and howling wind, or whatever elements you've chosen. He's going to start asking himself questions. What was it? Was he imagining it? Was it real? There's lots of questions that might be just buzzing around in his brain when he's in this kind of half awake, half asleep state. Okay, so that's it. We've got our rhetorical questions. But he realises that something has changed, or he feels that something has actually changed. So I came up with some words. See, I'm having to put in so much hard work because normally I make you do all the thinking, but I'm having to do it because you're not here. Okay, so I wanted words to do with that things have changed. So altered. Perhaps they were just strange, just not quite right, or unfamiliar. Maybe it was a little bit stronger than that, maybe a bit suspicious. Okay, yeah, we've got some to work on there. And again, add your own. And, you know, we can always use these adverbs. They're called adverbs of degree. And they're just little words that you can pop in that make you go from being tired to being extremely tired. Or go from being, you know, I don't know, what could be dramatically from, you could be shouting, you could be talking, or you could be talking dramatically. Okay, so they are adverbs because they describe how you're doing things. So we might pop that in. Let's really get that going. Now, it's quite a long sentence. I'm going to move my camera down a little bit because we've gone from a very short sentence. Now we want quite a long sentence to counteract it, okay? And I'm going to say, oh, we've got barely conscious. I'm going to say, if I start there, only semi-conscious. Only semi-conscious, and that's my fronted adverbial, isn't it? So I want a comma. What did Conor do? Conor, well, he sat up in bed, didn't he, really? That's generally what you do. Sat up in bed. And I'm going to end, I think, a sentence there. Okay, we've got our fronted adverbial in. We've got good vocabulary. It's nothing over the top, but the way we're putting it all together is making it really effective. Conor sat up in bed. Right, rhetorical question. Because he's thinking it to himself, we are going to punctuate it as direct speech. Okay, what? So I'm going to put my inverted commas. Always start with a capital letter. What was that? Okay. Oh, it's a question. Mustn't forget my question mark. Make sure it goes inside the inverted commas. And let's just make it very clear. He thought. What was that? He thought. Something. Was unfamiliar. Oh, I want something a bit more I'm going to use an ellipsis. A bit of a do. Something was unfamiliar. And I'm going to repeat. Something was extremely unfamiliar. Okay. Only semi-conscious, Conor sat up in bed. What was that? He thought. Something was unfamiliar. Something was extremely unfamiliar. I'm happy with that. I hope you're happy with that too. I'm going to read you the 3 chunks together. Now I can do that because I've got them on a piece of paper. You haven't. But just so you can hear what our story's sounding like so far. Conor had a nightmare. The horrific howling wind, a torturous trickle of blood, sudden short breaths, and a sinister shadowy figure. He woke. He woke gasping. He woke trembling. Only semi-conscious, Conor sat up in bed. What was that, he thought? Something was unfamiliar. Something was extremely unfamiliar. So the same for this 3rd chunk. I'd like you to see if you can improve on my vocabulary. Again, I challenge you. Can you think of 2, 3, 4 more options that you could use? Write your own version of my sentence. The model is there for you. So you're going to start it with a how adverbial phrase. Okay, so how did he sit up? Only semi-conscious. And you're going to follow it with 1, or you can include 2 rhetorical questions. Okay, you're going to end it with repetition about this feeling of change, this feeling that something was not right. Okay, so that's your 3rd and final chunk for today. I hope this is working okay for you. Any comments, just send me a message on Teams. Once you've got your chunks done and you've got your whole paragraph, which is the plot point for Conor wakes from a nightmare, could you please upload it onto Teams so that I can have a look through it all and give you a little bit of feedback. All right, good luck, enjoy it. I will read you this book when we've finished writing about it, okay, because it's a really brilliant book. All right, see you later. Bye, guys.